Ernest Tahoe lives in what most of us would call the middle of nowhere. When you look around you and you see look at your backyard. Look at it.
It's wide open.
It's pretty spectacular.
It is. You know, this is how we love this, being peaceful out here, you know, when it's wide open and we can walk freely to wherever we need to go or do what we need to do.
This is the Hopi Indian Reservation in northern Arizona. You wouldn't trade this right now for anything, would you? This life?
No, I wouldn't. Personally, I love it here. It's peaceful, and it's where I'd rather live the rest of my life.
On his little personal piece of paradise, Ernest grows corn. It is a staple of the Hopi diet. When it matures, there will be enough to feed his family. What's left over will go to friends. The high desert is a tough place to grow crops. The Hopi practice what is called dry farming. So you don't do any irrigation or anything out here for the most part. It's just wait on Mother Nature.
Yes, we pretty much wait for her to bless us with her rain.
Water is a precious commodity here. It is also a source of great concern. But it's difficult to appreciate that part of the story without first getting a glimpse of the much bigger picture. The Hopi lands, more than 600,000 hectares, seem to go on endlessly. But in reality, it is, Hopi leaders say, a nation blocked off from the rest of the world. Herman Honani is chairman of the tribal council. And all of what is around you here is all Navajo?
All Navajo, all the way going into New Mexico, Colorado, Utah.
As vast as their land appears, Hopi leaders say they've been eaten away over the decades, given, they say, by the federal government to the Navajo.
The more they encroached out of their designated area, the more land that they got. And it just went on and on until finally we were encircled by the Navajo Reservation through executive orders. And so that in itself, I don't think any entity in this country is in this situation.
They weren't using the land, so...
What did the federal government and the courts base their decisions on? If you don't use it, you lose it.
Daniel Honani is the tribe's executive director.
We focus on trying to protect our land base, and we have lost in every case to such an extent that our land base at one time was huge, and now it's dwindled down to 1/4 the size that it ordinarily is. In relation to that, we are probably the only sovereign in the United States of America that is situated within another tribal sovereign.
You're completely surrounded,
We're
basically,
completely
by the
surrounded
Navajo.
by the Navajo.
That has made doing business with the outside world all the more difficult. In fact, the tribe's only significant source of revenue is from the Kayenta coal mine, and the mine has only one customer. Navajo Generating Station, or NGS. But NGS, the largest coal-fired plant in the western United States, is very likely to close by 2019. Utility companies can buy power cheaper from natural gas-powered plants. It's responsible for something like 60, maybe more percent of the income for Hopi is from that plant?
Yes, sir. It's about at least 85%.
85%?
85% of our operating budget.
That's huge.
That is huge. That's a lot.
I mean, how do you survive if that plant goes away?
That's hard to say. That's really hard to say, and that's really, really our challenge right now.
The loss will hit everyone on the reservation hard. The council's operating budget will be cut 12% next year. Right now, each of the reservation's 12 villages receives $350,000 annually. They may take a hit too. Tribal leaders are hoping the Trump administration will relax regulations, making it easier for them to find alternative uses and buyers for their vast coal reserves. Chairman Honani attended a White House meeting with leaders of other tribes and heard what they hope are encouraging words from the president.
Many of your lands have rich natural resources that stand to benefit your people immensely. These untapped resources of wealth can help you build new schools, fix roads, improve your communities, and create jobs. Jobs like you've never seen before.
Jobs. That would be a blessing. They are scarce here. Unemployment hovers at a staggering 50%. One of the few bright spots is the Hopi-run Montkopi Legacy Inn on the western side of the reservation. In 2010, it became the first hotel built on Hopi land in 50 years. The Grand Canyon is about 100 miles away, and the inn sits at a major traffic crossroads.
They're out of different museums,
Yes,
right? All
yes.
museum
You have
pieces.
the Peabody Museum, the Autry in L.A.,
This one
the
here
Klein
is
Library.
yeah, where we were.
Yeah, and this is a 1948 shot of New Araibi, or Kikotsmovi, where the tribal government complex is, but you can see how it looked before the
All dirt
asphalt.
roads.
And, yep, all dirt roads.
James Surveyor is operations manager.
We put a little over 100 people to work back in April of 2010, and our CEO felt that we should have been on the cover of Wall Street Journal magazine because in Hopi we have such a severely depressed community as far as jobs, poverty, those numbers that you're probably well aware of, that creating that many jobs, is huge.
This location might be perfect for a casino, but unlike other tribes who have found a pot of gold in the gaming industry, the Hopi, despite their economic hardships, have shunned the idea.
When I was a tribal operations officer, we were one of the first tribes that explored the opportunity for gaming. That initiative has failed twice because of the people not wanting it. And yet you see the same people off in the casinos all the time.
Some of the wounds suffered by the Hopi are self-inflicted. They are perhaps the most reclusive tribe in the United States. The access we were granted was rare. Many Hopi want nothing to do with the outside world or outsiders. We were invited into only one of the 12 villages, but when we got there, no one was out on the streets. The Hopi are a very private people. The sign behind me here pretty much says it all. No audio recordings, no photos, no sketches. In fact, we couldn't take a picture of this sign if we didn't have a permit. Living on the Rocky Mesas in this desert land, the Hopi are straddling two worlds, holding on to the traditions and culture thousands of years old, yet knowing that to survive they must accept, if not embrace, technology and progress.
I've been working for the tribe for about 32 plus years, and I've heard that adage that tradition is the enemy of progress. And in a reasonable way of looking at it, sometimes it does hinder us simply because our tradition is rich and strong.
The Hopi passionately guard their tradition and religious beliefs. The Cochina represent all of nature that the Hopi believe in. They represent life.
This one is called a holy kachina that represents the dragonfly.
We were allowed to show these Kachina dolls, but no outsider is supposed to have access to the sacred Kachina friends. Distrust of outsiders was further fueled in 2013 when 65 of them, we would call them masks, were auctioned off in Paris.
When you first found out about the Paris auction, it had to be a real blow to the stomach.
It is sacrilegious to have, first of all, been taken off the Hopi reservation because the Hopi villages are their homes. The Hopi people are their caretakers, the stewards of our Kachina friends. So to have them treated in such disgusting manner, to have been commodified and turned into art and sold, is just not right.
The Hopi went to court but failed in their attempt to stop the auction. just another slap in the face, the Hopi say.
This is my
Luann Leonard lived for a time on the reservation with her grandmother, Marietta.
So what are they doing here?
They're grinding corn. Each of them has a little pile of cornmeal in front of them, as you can see.
Is that blue corn, I guess?
Yeah,
right?
it could be blue or white.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes there are men singing to them corn grinding songs to help it go faster and make it a little easier.
Luann was the first Native American to serve on the Arizona Board of Regents. She is now the executive director of the Hopi Education Fund. Since 2000, they have awarded $9 million in scholarships to students seeking higher education. But when they get degrees, there are no jobs to come back to. So half of the 15,000 Hopi live off the reservation.
I do really believe we owe it to them, as leaders of the tribe, to create opportunities, do whatever we can to bring those jobs and good housing, good water out here so that people will stay.
And so we get back to water. The water Samantha Paul is using to cook with is contaminated with the heavy metal arsenic, higher than the standard set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Arsenic, which is naturally occurring in groundwater, can, in high concentrations, cause everything from diarrhea to muscle cramping and has been linked to certain cancers.
It's really hard to comprehend and, understand how long it's going to take to finally get clean water in our homes and in our schools.
Samantha is a teacher at First Mesa Elementary School. While the water department publicly insists there's no reason to stop using it, the school is bringing in bottled water. Samantha is also part of a grassroots movement trying to educate Hopi people and draw attention to the problem. Students even presented letters to the tribal council asking for safe water. There is some optimism. This is a new well, one of two drilled into a deeper, clean aquifer. But the water is going nowhere. Why? Money.
We are subject to fines in the near future if we cannot get this thing up and running.
But if you don't have the money, what are you going to do?
That is the catch-22 that we are in right now. We need to find a funding source to get these things up and running and get our people good water.
Lionel Pahuyasva is the Hopi Water Resource Director. They need $22 million to put in pump stations, bring in electricity, and lay 15 miles of pipe.
For many of the Hopi, you included, it just doesn't seem right.
No, it's not right. There's fiduciary issues that the United States is responsible for us, yet we cannot get them to come in here and aid us in a manner that will be consistent with how they treat other countries around the world, where we're giving billions of dollars to these other people to build up their infrastructure, yet we can't do it at home.
Home. At Dawa Park, Hopi history is told in the countless ancient petroglyphs covering the sheer rock walls. Carved into the stone there are figures of people, solar calendars, snakes, sheep. The focal point, a carving high up on the face of one wall, is stunning. For 2,000 years, this high desert and its wind-worn mesas have been home to the Hopi. They have weathered tough times in the past, and just as their ancestors did, the Hopi say patience will guide them as they carve out their future.